what do we need philosophy for?
I think you need philosophy for like to have a like kind of like ideological background for doing something. For example, if like a society has to be organized in a certain way, there has to be needs to be some core belief or some core way of doing it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think so.
Also,
Everybody understand what Marcus said? Yeah, okay, so
also we need some way of formulating the things that, an understanding of the things that we don't know, so that we can use our developed methods to take knowledge from our understanding of truth. So like an understanding of the universe which isn't scientific comes before using physics to understand it. So there's a tie.
So we're talking about something supernatural, or
maybe, but more theorizing on things that we don't know, so that we can use that theory to develop what we do know.
Mm-hmm.
So like a theory of a god, and how that's science was developed out of an idea of God and appreciation for the things around us.
I just have a question for you. What do you mean with supernatural?
I mean like it's something we don't have capability to observe or like perceive, like something that we cannot get answers for. Like for example, how the universe was created, or is there something bigger than us we cannot ever really see or hear or taste, or for example God.
So by supernatural you mean something that we cannot understand in any way? Because
Yes.
I give you an example. For the first part of your definition, I could say that air is supernatural because I cannot really feel air in a sense, but I have some instrument that allows me to analyze it. Okay. So in the second part of your definition, if I well understood, air is not supernatural. To be supernatural must be really something I have no instruments to really get what it is.
Yeah, but air is like something you can breathe. You can still feel it in a way, even though you cannot see it and basically define it per se. But supernatural would be something like a ghost or something that there is no any way to research it or anything. Although I don't believe in ghosts, but in hypothetical sense.
Yeah, just by definition.
Yes.
Okay, so you are meaning something supernatural in that sense?
Yes.
Okay.
For instance, with air, there is a way to empirically measure it.
Mm.
However, if we were to truly understand understand what air is to us as humans, and understand air as a truth, we'd have to talk about experience of air and feeling of the skin, and how different body shapes would encounter air in different ways if we wanted to fully understand air, as opposed to just measure it.
So now I have another question for you both. Which difference do you see between philosophy and theology?
Well, philosophy is it's not like a tied on particular religious dogma. It's like it's a bit same in theology, but the questions are different. Because, in theology, if you think about how the world was created, they have very clear answer. For example, in Christian theology, that God created the universe.
The theologians don't have a clear answer.
Yeah, okay, but their basic answers are like that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Isn't theology basically the difference between theology and philosophy is that in philosophy you kind of look at people much more and people's relationship to God and belief. And
Yeah.
theology is just study of like godliness itself.
I'm not sure if I get everything. So in theology we have God, and philosophy we don't. Is that the
No,
point?
I
Maybe I didn't understand. I'm sorry. I
No.
didn't understand.
That's why I would like think about it. Then like theology would be the study of God, and philosophy would be more like how people kind of the relationship between God and the people. So like how we think about God and that kind of stuff. But that's just.
It's a good way to say it.
Hmm?
But I would say that philosophy it differs from theology. That it's like it has different questions, in my opinion, and it's not tied to any like supernatural explanation. Philosophy is more like about morals and yeah.
Actually, I have a funny definition of the difference between theology and philosophy. I'm Catholic, but I always say that theology is the porn version of philosophy, because it's like in a porn, you already know what is going to happen. That's God, in this case. And yeah, but here the point is, what do you mean by philosophy and what do you mean by theology? So you say that we need philosophy for like having an ideological way of approaching to life.
Yes.
Yeah, to me. And you say that philosophy is for.
It's for ideology and it's for our own initiation of truth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to search the truth.
Yes.
Okay. Do you both have some different ideas, or you agree completely on what they say?
I think that philosophy helps us think about everyday problems on an abstract level, which makes it easier to distance yourself from certain problems and think about it as just something that's far away from you. And I don't know, I think that's just, it helps thinking about something that's an abstract idea it's easier than thinking about something that's affecting you and your everyday life, if that makes sense.
Like watching yourself in a video game, in a sense.
Yes, sort of. So you can distance yourself from, like if we had a discussion about everyday problems, we can, like for example, the fact that I'm vegan, we can discuss that without me getting angry or upset if someone disagrees with me, because I can distance myself and think about the subject as an abstract version of my everyday life or what it means to me.
Absolutely. And
Yeah, I kind of agree with you more than with your ideas, because like basically for me also philosophy is just a different perspective on everything basically, and yeah, same as you said, kind of.
have you ever tried to question yourself this way? What would happen in this planet without philosophy?
I think like some things in society would be different. Like for example, like the first philosophers like Socrates, and they like wanted people to like think themselves, and basically he asked very uncomfortable questions to people. I think we wouldn't have like same kind of democratic societies, and our like perception of human rights and what is good and bad of it would be a bit different. If there wouldn't be like anyone like actively thinking about these things, or if people won't think those things at all.
Do somebody else have
I
different
believe
opinion?
that we would behave much more like other primates if it wasn't for philosophy. It's sort of like the determinist nightmare, where humans aren't sacred. We wouldn't organize ourselves in the same way that we organize ourselves now. we would behave on just individual impulsion as opposed to trying to understand the world around us or trying to understand other people. It would be very chaotic and violent.
Could be even another option that nobody still mentioned, but let's see if somebody mentions that. Do you both have some other idea?
I guess we wouldn't have a lot of what we have scientific proven, just science for. Like, there are things that we started thinking about and then scientifically proved it later on, but without philosophy, people wouldn't have started to even question those things.
Example?
Well, for example, when everyone thought that God just made us the way we were, and then Descartes started thinking that it's not just what God made us. There are other things that makes us who we are. So we can't just explain everything with saying that God just made it this way.
Which are the other options?
Like, if we didn't start thinking about, like, if we didn't have philosophy, we wouldn't have even had the ideas that then led to science, or to be able to prove those ideas. I just think we wouldn't question things. We would just accept that whatever God or whomever is the big guy up there or down there or wherever just made us like this.
I think that depends, like, how, in a sense, what you see philosophy as, like, if it actually changes the world or not, because, well, I believe that, like, because of philosophy, there are different, it kind of facilitates change because it allows for, like, movements of thoughts, but, like, for example, like you said, with kind of scientific thinking, that's, if you look at it like as a philosophy, then that sort of like facilitated change in the society. But you could also argue that that's not really philosophy because it's like, because it relates to the practical world, and so it becomes sort of more like society's way of thinking rather than philosophy.
And what is society way of thinking? I mean, which is the difference between society way of thinking and philosophy?
I'm not really sure.
I mean, when you studied, of course, if you studied a way of thinking about society, that's sociology or anthropology. It depends by the way you study it. But considering it in itself, I mean, for example, a communist society comes from a communist philosophy, and it's very difficult to tell the difference between the philosophy and the practical application. I mean, every one of us feels that there is a difference between the communist theory and communist practice. But furthermore, if we really try to understand which is this difference, what are exactly the different things, that starts being a little bit more complicated. Okay, because maybe this, yeah, but maybe more this one. It's just not impossible, but a bit complicated. So I would like to understand in which sense do you make this difference between philosophical, like, field and way of thinking about society.
I think in a sense because when different individuals kind of take an idea and look at it from their own perspective and they interpret it differently, then that sort of causes that idea to be distorted in a sense. And also, if you apply that to, like I said, in a communist society, individual people who sort of helped to build the communist society didn't think about communism while they were doing it. I mean, maybe some of them were, but most of them were thinking in much more like practical terms. So that means that they sort of, many of them, for example, acted with the wave of the people. So what other people were doing, like, I don't know, looting churches, for example. They just followed the crowd without thinking that, the church is the symbol of oppression, or they just, wanted to get golden cups or whatever was in the church. So once sort of philosophy is applied to like a bigger society, that each individual person, on one hand, thinks about the ideology differently, and so kind of distorts it to their own needs, and on the other hand, many people just don't think about it at all and don't act according to it.
Oh, that's very interesting, because on the other hand, the obvious answer would be like, that's not lack of philosophy, it's just a specific one. I mean, that's Thomas Hobbes, Homo homini lupus. I'm just thinking about looting churches. That's a philosophy. Maybe that's not our one. I hope it's not our one, because looting churches is not good, baby. Don't do that at home. Unless you are inside of a revolution where everybody's doing it, so who cares? Because one more, one less is not going to change a lot. But still, maybe it's not a great idea. But now, in this very moment, but I'm sure it's not a good idea, by the way. But there is another question that is quite interesting, and I would like to propose it not only to you, but to everybody. Which is exactly the difference between philosophy and practical way of thinking? I mean, you've been making this distinction, okay? You said it was not exactly philosophy because they were more thinking practical. I'm quite curious, because a lot of people think that there is a difference between philosophy and practical thinking, and normally everyone has a different idea about this distinction. So, which is your ones in general? You can totally start if you already want to start, for example, but after that, I would like that everybody answer to that, because it's a quite interesting topic, in my opinion.
I would say that philosophy stops becoming like theory and philosophy and starts becoming more practical when it calls for actual change in the world. So when it encourages something to change in a society, or it calls for its followers to action.
And how do we call the other one?
The other one.
Okay, there is philosophy and something.
Yeah.
Okay, I just propose you some Greek word. What you say as practical thinking in Greece were called phronesis. I don't know if you heard this word before. I don't know if we have an English word, because, for example, in Italian we translate it in phronetica, but I'm pretty sure that there is no translation in English.
Maybe something like phonetics,
Phonetics,
but I'm not entirely sure about
no
that.
idea. Still phronesis. Okay, we have a difference in Greece between phronesis and Sophia. Sophia is like thinking about God, thinking about what should be in theory, and phronesis is most like, if you're a carpenter, you're learning something, and that something you're learning is still like knowledge, but it's not Sophia, it's phronesis. Okay? And so you've been making this difference, and do somebody else have another way to find this difference between Sophia and phronesis?
I would say that philosophy isn't just personal introspection. Philosophy can exist as an individual doing philosophy, or as a society doing philosophy. And the practical things that we do in everyday life, they're all philosophy. They all have some philosophical meaning. because we attach meaning to the things we do.
It's a pan-philosophical way of thinking.
Well, if it's the society putting meaning on things, that's philosophy operating in society. And if it's us putting emotions and feelings on things and putting the semantics onto things, that's in individual philosophy, but they're related because we're in society. Sort of, I understand you as a person, and if you exist, you understand me as a person. And there's some commonality there, but we don't have the same experience. The society exists here, and it also exists here.
So we could say that it's kind of a race. I mean, there are a lot of philosophies, and the one that wins, we call it society.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
And there's probably not just one winning, but it's still jamming every day to see who's going to win tomorrow, because
Yes.
we don't really have a stable society that never changes. I don't know. Just proposing some ideas. Do you have some other ideas about this difference between Sophia and phronesis?
Well, what are those in English? Sorry, I forgot.
Sophia is like wisdom. Okay, is exactly wisdom, and so is thinking about theoretical stuff. And on the other hand, we have phronesis, that is like practical knowledge. Okay.
Well, obviously, like wisdom, I consider that to be like a something you have like gain from like a normal life, something that is useful, or like the way like something is good to do. Like for example, I don't know, wise thing to do. Like it's wise to have like constructive discussions with people in order to get along. That's like wisdom. That's not like intelligence, which is intelligence is more like you're something you have inherited in a way, like intellectual capacity. But like theory, there's like possible to think things in an imaginary way in your head, that I will do something, or the society should be like this, but it's obviously different than doing something in real life. But on the other hand, you have to, like a theory and practical things have to like have some kind of interaction between each other. So I don't think they can like completely like be non-existent towards each other.
And when practical things once theories themselves? Because someone had to think about the practical thing the first time, so it was just a theory before they made it practical.
I'm not sure if I get your idea.
That was the first time when someone had a thought about something that we today call practical. So at one point, everything was a theory. At one point, everything was just the thought of a person. And then it became practical. Like you have an idea in your head, that's a theory. And if you, let's say you're an artist and you have an idea of a sculpture, in your head that's a theory, an idea. And when you actually make that sculpture, you put your idea into something practical. Or not practical, but like something that now exists and other people can then understand you better. And what was in your head originally. And also, isn't philosophy, when we put it into practical use, just kind of, in a way, turns into politics?
Or science.
Or science, yeah.
It's like science is just another philosophy, but because it produces so much practical benefits, it's a philosophy that stayed around for for a long time, and it's an important part of everything we do.
But even science, in a sense, is politics.
Maybe.
Do you get this little
Maybe.
provocation? I don't know.
Well,
More and more.
I would like to get more like in-depth description of that. I can like have a guess what you mean, but I'm not sure.
Oh, being very simple, I mean that every scientific progress implies some change in society.
Yeah.
So it is polis, is politica from ancient Greek, as all of you of course knows better than me, is the management of the city. Okay, polis is the city, politica is the way we decide to manage it. Okay, so actually is like the management of society. So if I discover a way to save people from cancer, that's going to be a change for the whole society. Yeah, not going to be the same society where we were dying because of cancer.
Yeah,
It's not of society.
only in the sense that your like invention gets to the masses. Because if you have like a good idea but no one can like implement it to like the real life to the people, then it's not changed. But if your like invention does something great, something utilitarian, then it's like great. Then it makes a change.
Only if it reaches everybody.
Yeah.
Not
For
everybody.
example, like Leonardo da Vinci, like he invented many different like type of like complicated machinery, like tank and helicopter. But those inventions like were actually implemented into reality hundreds of years later.